Let me give you a little bit more information about Tacitus and Josephus ben Matthias, that most Christians who utilize these two as a validation of the historical Jesus will omit, or they have actually never read, which shows that they are just going off of sound bites. To understand the story more clearly, you have to go back in time to the fact of during the Roman conquest of Judea, well, not even a conquest, the Roman shutdown of the Judean revolts, Emperor Nero, the last of the Julio-Claudians, called in his best general, Vespasian, to shut down the Jewish revolts in Judea. His first battle was against Josephus and his army. Josephus' army was defeated, and while in a cave, Josephus convinced them to commit suicide, and that he would be the last one to suicide himself after he killed everybody else. Josephus killed everybody else, but then he did not commit suicide himself, but went to Vespasian and Titus and proclaimed that Vespasian would become the new emperor, that through the Jewish Messianic prophecies, that he, Vespasian, was the coming Messiah. This intrigued Vespasian, and he allowed for Josephus to become the scribe of his son Titus. Many will look at what they say Josephus validated the historical Jesus and say that that is proof of a historical Jesus, yet it has been proven that that information, that those statements in Josephus' annals are a forgery, that they were added much later after Josephus had long died, that the Catholic Church, or what would become the Catholic Church, added that to his writings. But if you continue to read Josephus' writings, you will see that he speaks about 4 different Yeshuas who did different things that are attributed to the Yeshua of your Bible. But what you will also see is that Josephus, in his writings, proclaimed that the government of Vespasian, once he conquered and the other 4 emperors of Rome, became the Messianic Messiah that the Jewish people were looking for. Josephus did not claim Jesus as the Christ, but he claimed Vespasian to be such. Now then they want to talk about Tacitus the historian, Tacitus the historian, and validate the historical Jesus by looking at a letter that Tacitus wrote to Younger, saying that what should I do about these Christians that are in my territory? And they validate the fact, the only thing he's validating is the fact that there were people who believed in a Christ. Although some of the more common people did not believe that Vespasian was that Christ, and so there was a difference of opinion, there were many others who believed that Vespasian was that Christ. One of the reasons that they believe this is because, as recorded by Suetonius and Cassius Dio, who were alive during the time of Vespasian, this is not like Tacitus, who is writing after the so-called death, writing 100 years later. This is someone who, these are 2 historians who wrote at the exact time Vespasian was alive and was emperor. Well, what happened? While Vespasian was sitting in sitting in Egypt, sitting on his throne in Egypt, there appeared to be 2 men who came to Vespasian because they were told in a dream by their god Serapis, and we're not even going to get into who Serapis was, because you know that is a joining of a Jewish Messianic character with the Greek Ptolemy, who ruled Egypt, as the Hellenistic thing that they would do is to merge the deities. But these 2 men were told by Serapis that if they were to go to Vespasian, that he had healing powers, and that, listen to the words because it will sound familiar, that the blind man, if he spat in the eye of the blind man, as Vespasian spat in the eye of the blind man, that his sight would return. That the man whose hand would not work, would not function, that if he stepped his foot on the hand of the man whose hand wouldn't work, that his hand would begin to work. They both had this dream. They both came on the same day. Vespasian originally did not want to do it, but his court insisted that he did. When he did spit in the man's eye, the man claimed that he restored his vision that day. When Vespasian stepped on the man's hand, he proclaimed that his hand worked that same day. Suetonius and Crassus Dio proclaimed that these miracles happened on the exact same day. These are miracles that you find in your Bible that are now attributed to Jesus. The Catholic Church later on tried to use some of Tacitus' writings to say that it's possible that he had an eyelash that was blocking his sight, and that when he spat in his eye, the eyelash was removed. They claimed that Vespasian must have performed some type of hand chiropractic work that allowed for the man's hand to work. Tacitus said that this is a possibility, but more than likely, it is such a miracle that occurred with Vespasian. So my issue here, my thought process here, is that if you are going to utilize Tacitus and Josephus as your claim for a historical Jesus, consider the fact that these two also proclaim that Vespasian was the Messiah of the Jewish people, because Vespasian used that prophecy of the Jewish Messiah to be able to become a deity within the Roman government, to become a part of the imperial religion. Vespasian became the Messiah, and Tacitus was the son of this god. This is why when you read the annals of Titus, you will see that many of the similarities, many things that you find in your Gospels that Jesus supposedly did, they were accomplished by Tacitus and by Vespasian. So the question is, who's the true Messiah that has been created? Who's the true Messiah? Is it your Jesus, or is it borrowed information from Vespasian, borrowed information from Titus, which there's a book in the Bible called Titus? Or is it the fact that Josephus wrote about a Yeshua character, 4 of them, but proclaimed Vespasian as the Messiah? That Tacitus wrote about that there were people who believed in a Christ, but still aligned himself with Vespasian. And you had, unlike the Jesus story, where you have absolutely zero historians who wrote about Jesus during the time frame of Jesus, you have 2 historians who are deemed accurate, who wrote about the miracles that were performed by Vespasian that you see are now proclaimed to be performed by your Yeshua character. It's something like, and what's his name? Hall would say, things that make you go, Y'all have a great day.